Chapter 180, Negotiations with Mai. Seeing that Yuna was still slightly depressed from Zabruza's comment, Mai decided to quickly push the conversation forward. Well, handshake aside, why did you come here, Yuna? Yuna tilted her head in confusion when she heard Mai's question. Didn't I already answer that? I want to fight the Sanbi. Mai was naturally taken aback by that answer. She heard how Yuna told Zabruza the same thing, but she just assumed that Yuna was messing with him. Wanting to fight one of the Bijou seemed to be too absurd to be actually true. Before she could ask more questions, however, Zabruza threw in yet another comment. No need to think too deeply about this, Mai-sama. I already mentioned it when I introduced her, but if you try to judge Yuna's actions with common sense you will only get a headache. Going out of your way to fight someone strong might not be something a normal person would do, but something Yuna certainly would. A frown appeared on Mai's face when she heard Zabruza's words, and she was just about to reprimand Zabruza for insulting Yuna again when she saw Yuna nodding her head in acknowledgement. Indeed, fighting strong and interesting enemies is my passion. Especially if it is something as interesting as another Jinchukiri or even better, a Bijou. During the Chunin exam, Gaara wasn't strong enough to satiate my appetite for a fight with a Jinchuriki, and I had to leave the Ichibi to Naruto since better prey popped up, so this is the perfect chance for me to have some fun. The surrounding people couldn't help but look at Yuna weirdly when she finished her explanation, while Zabruza only shrugged his shoulders with a wry smile on his face. A short moment later, Mai regathered her wits and continued speaking. Anyway, I'm surprised that Konoha even allowed you to come here. Zabruza is one thing, but when one of Konoha's Jinchuriki suddenly fights side by side with an army from Kuri, it could lead to a lot of complications for Konoha, so I am happy th. While Mai was talking, she noticed that the atmosphere around Zabruza turned somewhat weird, while Yuna had a somewhat weird smile on her face as well. The people of Konoha Dio know that you are here, don't they? Haha, I'm pretty sure they know. Well, at least Tsunade should. Should. How come you are not sure about that? Well, I left a letter behind at Tsunade's home before leaving, and I am not sure whether she read it already or not. Doesn't that mean you snuck out? With a surprising amount of synchronization, everyone in the room said the same thing at the same time. Even those that haven't said anything yet chimed in. Hee hee. Don't laugh. Haha, cough asterisk, you people really are great friends. It can't be easy to be in sync with such a huge group, especially if it is done spontaneously. Feeling the people around her glaring at her hard enough to almost set her aflame, another chuckle escaped Yuna before she decided to pacify the situation. Oh well, no need to act like this. For now, the only people from Kuri that know that I'm here are the people in this room, and I won't interfere in your fight either. This is your rebellion, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. I will only appear when the Jinchuriki enters the battlefield. As soon as he does, I will fight him, and after I have won against him, I will leave again. That should be quite an excellent deal for you, right? Although a few people nodded their heads with uncertainty, at the end of the day, Mai was still the one who had the last word, so instead of paying attention to the people around her, Yuna focused her eyes on Mai, who was still pondering about what Yuna just said. After contemplating for a while, Mai's eye sharpened as she looked at Yuna. Why are you so sure that you can actually defeat him? You are strong, I have no doubts about that, but Yugura is still a cage with a bijou sealed inside of him. As Mai finished speaking, she flared her chakra, and powerful pressure started radiating out of her and crashed into Yuna. While the other people in the room started sweating a little from the pressure, a light chuckle escaped Yuna. Have you forgotten who I am? Pressure, which was similar to Mai's, exploded out of Yuna and contested against Mai's, resulting in the other people in the room feeling even more uncomfortable. Mai, however, was unmoving and was still staring at Yuna. Although she found it unbelievable that Yuna could contest with her like this still wasn't enough to be confident in defeating Yugura. She knew that her fight against Yugura would happen for a long time now, and she prepared all kinds of trump cards for it. She didn't believe that someone at Yuna's level could just come over and defeat him without any preparations. Yuna, however, only smiled when she saw the look on Mai's face. Hee, you are not bad, little girl, but you were a million years too early to start a contest like that against me. Mai was just about to ask where that nonsensical number came from when the pressure on her started increasing at a steady pace. She couldn't help but widen her eyes in disbelief. At first, she thought Yuna was already going all out, but now she realized that Yuna was only matching her chakra output. Now, however, the pressure was endlessly increasing. Seeing Mai struggle more and more, a slight smirk appeared on Yuna's face. The greatest limiter to her strength in her new life has always been the age of her body. No matter how much chakra she had, there was a limit to how much her body could handle, and as she grew older and older, that limit was increasing at an exponential rate. If it was chakra pressure alone, she could easily match a cage by now. Noticing that the other people in the room were struggling more and more, Yuna started reducing the pressure, while Mai instinctively did the same. Well, what do you think? Can I defeat Yugura? Mai could only smile wryly when she heard Yuna's questions. If Yuna couldn't defeat him, then she wouldn't have a good time either. I will entrust this fight to you and wish you good luck in your battle. Haha, no problem. Oh? Is it just me, or did she just become more obedient? Naturally. After all, I showed her my cultivator's prestige. You're what? I won the pissing contest. Ah, that makes sense. Chapter 181, Ice vs. Lava. It has been a few hours since Yuna arrived in Kiridikure, and so far, nothing has happened on the front line. Team 42 was ambushed, they need reinforcement. We can send Team 7 and Team 69. They have just defeated their enemies. Team 16's ambush was successful, they are awaiting new orders. Well, at least nothing that was of interest to Yuna has happened. She was currently lazing around on a couch inside the rebels' command center while munching on some snacks. Although some people wanted to know where the couch came from, so far, everyone had better things to do than to chat with Yuna. At first, some people wanted to kick her out of the command center, but that notion vanished rather quickly. Team 3 might walk into an ambush soon. Munch star. While Yuna continued to eat, she casually commented on the current conflict. Instead of ignoring her seemingly random comment, one of the people in the tent immediately reacted and made sure the message was delivered instantly over a mental connection. Although the Yamanaka clan was the clan who was the most famous for their battlefield-wide communication techniques, that didn't mean that the other villages didn't have something similar to command their troops. A few minutes later, a message came and that Team 3 found the people that wanted to ambush them and managed to deal a lot of damage with a counterattack. The person that delivered the message nodded towards Yuna with appreciation and continued his work without a moment of delay. Yuna was never someone who commanded huge armies during wars and preferred to fight by herself or in small groups, so she won't make any outrageous claims that she could see through whatever strategy the enemy wanted to use, but she certainly could recognize some patterns in the rhythm of the battlefield. Although her speculations weren't always correct, she still had a pretty good success rate. That was the reason why no one minded her being inside the command room. After successfully predicting another ambush, Mai couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer and had to ask Yuna a question. How do you predict those ambushes? Even when I know where they are, I can't see any signs of them at all. A smirk appeared on Yuna's face when Mai asked her question, and it grew even wider when everyone in the room started working a little bit more quietly. Hee, how about you let me give you a little kiss and I will tell you. Everyone in the room froze up when Yuna said that. All of them knew exactly what kind of personality Mai had and thought that this might have a bad ending. Mai always reacted either flirtatiously or aggressively in these kinds of situations, and since Yuna's request sounded more like she was making fun of Mai, all of them thought the latter would be the case. Despite what everyone thought, that is not what happened. A small chuckle escaped Mai as she seductively licked her lips. Instead of saliva, however, her lips were covered by a thin film of lava. "Oh, Matilda, are you sure you can stand the heat? You can go right ahead and kiss me if you think you can, Tilda." Asterisk smack asterisk. The moment Mai stopped speaking, a loud smack echoed through the room. Zabruza had just facepalmed himself hard enough to leave a red handprint on his face. Before Mai could ask him what he was doing, Yuna appeared in front of her and sealed her lips with her own. As soon as Yuna's lips came into contact with Mai's lava-coated ones, a sizzling sound could be heard. Mai immediately panicked when she heard that sound. She just wanted to tease and maybe intimidate Yuna a little and not actually hurt her, after all. She was just about to pull back her head when she noticed that her lips were getting colder and colder. Her eyes widened in surprise when she realized that Yuna was counterattacking her lava with her ice. So far, she had never encountered anything that could push back against her Kikei Genkai, especially not in such close proximity. Up until now, Mai had only put the lava on her lips without supplying any chakra to it, so it was normal that Yuna could easily counter it. So, Mai quickly rectified that and started supplying chakra to her lips as well, causing the frozen feeling to decrease, but not completely vanish. She noticed rather quickly that she was slowly being pushed back and was just about to increase her output even further when she felt a hand on her shoulder that was pulling her away from Yuna. "Mai-sama, please control yourself. You shouldn't do something like that with someone so young, and especially not." The ending of Ao's sentence, however, could no longer be heard by Mai as she started sinking deeper and deeper into her own thoughts. "So young? Is Ao saying that I am old? Does he mean I am too old to marry someone?" Yuna, meanwhile, was rather annoyed by Zabruza, who was the one that pulled her away from Mai. Who does he think he is? He has been annoying me the whole day now. Does he think he can do whatever he wants because of my lax personality? Zabruza Ao, do you want me to freeze and melt you? Zabruza and Ao both took a step back when Yuna's and Mai's killing intent hit them. While Ao was pretty sure that there was some kind of misunderstanding, Zabruza knew that he had interfered with Yuna a little too much today. Yuna was a rather carefree person that liked to goof around, but that didn't mean that she was a pushover. If someone were to cross Yuna's bottom line, then they should prepare themselves to have a very bad time. Although Zabruza doubted that he had pushed Yuna that far, considering he could barely move due to the killing intent washing over him, Yuna certainly wasn't happy either. Zabruza gritted his teeth and was just about to apologize to Yuna when the pressure vanished. "Hee, please hold yourself back a little, Zabruza, or I might have to throw you into one of Naruto's trap arrays." Zabruza's whole body shivered in terror when he heard Yuna's threat. He felt like that would be even worse than getting killed on the spot, so he obediently nodded his head at the fastest speed he could muster. Mai, meanwhile, had a slight pink blush on her face when she remembered what just happened, but moments later, her fighting spirit was ignited when she realized that she didn't manage to push Yuna's ice back. "I won't give up so easily. Next time, my lava will win the battle." In the meantime, back in Konoha, Hinata and Anko were sitting in the living room while leisurely chatting with each other. Then, without any forewarning, Hinata stood up and smashed her fist onto the table, turning it into dust. "Damn it. I knew I shouldn't have allowed Yuna to go on her own." Anko, meanwhile, tilted her head in confusion when she heard Hinata's outrage. Did something happen to Yuna? Yes, she picked up another member for her harem. That's some scary intuition. Chapter 182, Meeting Two Stalkers. After the incident between Yuna and Mai was over, the command center returned to its usual business, while Yuna went back to lazing around. Or at least that was what she wanted to do, but the moment she sat back on the couch, her head snapped towards a certain direction, while a vicious smile appeared on her face. "Who do we have here, Tilda?" Without saying another word, Yuna stood up and walked towards the exit of the command center. "Yuna, where are you go?" Mai noticed that Yuna was leaving and called out to her, but when she saw the smile on Yuna's face, she choked on her own words. Hee, no worries. I'm just going for a little walk. Mai, who was still shocked from seeing the vicious expression on Yuna's face, simply nodded her head in agreement, and moments later, Yuna left the building and vanished from everyone's perception. Meanwhile, two people in matching black cloaks with red clouds were standing on a faraway hill while observing the battlefield. One of them had a weird-looking plant around his head, while half of his face was black and the other half was white. The other one was wearing an orange mask with a spiraling pattern on it and a single eye hole. After a few minutes of silence, the person with the plant around his head started speaking. It seems like your plans for Kiridakura are finally coming to fruition, Madara. The other person nodded his head in agreement. Indeed, it took me a long time to set everything up, but this war should be enough to cause Kiridakura to self-destruct. Reducing the amount of major hidden villages from 5 to 4 should make the success rate of our future plans much higher. The plant-like creature nodded his head in agreement and continued speaking. Additionally, we managed to gather enough chakra from the Sanbi that we don't have to bother about it anymore, which should allow us to stay hidden a little bit longer. Yes, the longer the other nations take to find out our PLA. Before the person with the orange mask could continue speaking, a pure white blade that was seemingly made out of ice appeared out of nowhere and cut straight through his neck. Oh, Matilda planning a conspiracy without me. That is very naughty. How do you exclude me from the fun? That sword, naturally, belonged to Yuna, who got attracted to two chakra signatures that felt very similar to Hashirama's chakra and Kakashi's Sharingan. The moment the sword passed through the masked person's neck, however, a frown appeared on Yuna's face. She certainly felt like she cut flesh, but it didn't feel like her attack cut through the whole neck. Yuna's eyes shone with interest when she saw that there was only a small gash on the neck of her opponent, despite her sword clearly having cut through it completely, and moments later she realized what should have happened. Oh. This is another one of those Sharingan gimmicks, isn't it? Considering the spectrum of useful parlors tricks the Sharingan can grant you, it's no wonder you Uchiha bunch all have a superiority complex over people that actually have to earn their power the normal way. The masked man completely froze up when he realized that the only reason he was alive right now was that he had trained himself to reflexively activate his intangibility when something cuts into his flesh, but the moment Yuna started mocking the Sharingan, he woke up from his stupor. Big words from someone who can't even begin to fathom the power the Sharingan holds. A mocking smile appeared on Yuna's face when she heard what the masked man said. Oh? And you do? Of course, after all, I am Uchiha Madara. Oi, do you still remember the plan, Herb? Madara. You should have thought about that before trying to recruit someone from the Uchiha clan, plant. The moment their beloved bloodline is mocked, their brain short-circuits. Plant. Anyway, this is a good chance for us, Madara. Although I have no clue why she is here, this is Yuno Uzumaki, the host of the Kyuubi. It's much earlier than planned, but this is a good chance to capture her. No need to remind me of that. I was going to make her pay for insulting me like that anyway. Well, before we start killing each other, could you tell me why you call yourself Madara? I mean, I know that a lot of you Uchiha are fangirling over him, but isn't pretending to be him a little too much? The man with the mask scoffed when he heard Yuna's question. I am not pretending to be him, I am him. Yuna could only shake her head at the poor delusional person in front of her. No, you are not. You're way too weak to be him. The only thing you have going for you is your ability to become intangible, which is rather worthless against me. The masked man gritted his teeth when he was mocked by Yuna yet again and became significantly more cautious of her when she revealed that she understood his ability, but on the outside, he didn't show any visible agitation. Yet another outrageous claim without any basis. If you don't resist, I can at least guarantee you that it will be painless, otherwise, things might get ugly. What do you choose? Yuna's face twisted in disdain when she heard the other person's nonsense and then lifted up her sword. Outrageous claim. Without any basis. Are you talking about yourself or the Uchiha's arrogance in general? I, of course, choose to cut you down. As she said that, Yuna swung down her sword, causing a thin icicle to fly towards the masked man. He saw the projectile flying towards his head, but decided not to bother dodging it. He would just let it pass through him as he did with Yuna's first sneak attack. The closer Yuna's attack came, however, the more he could feel death approaching him. Although he wanted to let Yuna's attack pass through him at first, his instincts were screaming at him that it would be a bad idea to do so. Just when Yuna's attack was about to hit him, he tilted his head backward, resulting in his mask being cut in two, but his head staying intact. Impossible, my karma, it didn't work. Of course it didn't. If I want to cut something, it will be cut no matter what dimension you hide it in. The now maskless man was visibly shaken when Yuna made her claim. If what she just said was true, then the ability granted to him by his Manjikyu Sharingan would be almost useless against her. Seeing the shock on the other person's face, Yuna couldn't help but chuckle a little. See? I told you so. Just a bunch of gimmicks and parlor tricks. Although I won't deny that they can be useful, at the end of the day it's just another weapon someone can use to win the battle. Besides that, I have seen a few old photos of you, but you have become quite ugly, oh by the tilde. Did you hear that, Kurama? I actually remembered his name properly. So? Do you want an applause or something? Asterisk sigh asterisk fine. Asterisk clap asterisk clap star. Well done, Yuna. Ha, praise me more. Chapter 183, Obito and Zetsu. As soon as Yuna appeared before him, the human-looking person with a huge plait around his head had a very strange feeling about her. Or rather, it would be more correct to use they for the half-black and half-white humanoids, since they are composed of two different entities, Black Zetsu and White Zetsu. Black Zetsu was only slightly flustered by Yuna's presence. He was the manifestation of someone's powerful will, so this was the first time he met someone with an even more powerful will. He, of course, didn't know why Yuna's presence made him this flustered. White Zetsu, on the other hand, was absolutely terrified of Yuna. Due to various reasons, he was very closely connected to nature and the world itself, but Yuna's very presence seemed to reject all of it, like she wasn't even a part of this world. Although Black Zetsu was only slightly flustered at the start, that changed when Yuna demonstrated her flying sword slash that ignored Obito's Kamui. Black Zetsu considered himself to be pretty much immortal since he wasn't a real living being from the start. He could freely change his form, and even if someone were to cut him into pieces, he could easily regenerate himself. Yuna's sword strike, however, gave him a feeling of dread. He wasn't sure how and why, but he felt like that sword strike could actually kill him, which meant that Yuna was a genuine threat to him. How would someone who never felt genuinely threatened for a very long time react when he was suddenly in danger? Oh, Obito, we need to retreat for now. She is more dangerous than we anticipated. The person would try to get away from the threat. Black Zetsu was given a very important mission, and he saw no reason to risk his life here. Especially not against someone who he was in no hurry to capture. Even if they managed to overpower and capture Yuna, all they could do with her, for now, would be imprisoning her, which was a huge risk on its own. Obito, who just managed to get out of his stupor, looked at the Zetsu duo in bewilderment. What do you mean by retreat? How could we possibly retreat now? For some reason, she knows my actual name, and we can't be sure of how much of our conversation she listened to either. Additionally, she is already very strong and her strength will only improve in the future. We need to get rid of her as soon as possible. Before Zetsu could answer him, a deafening roar echoed over the whole area, and moments later a gigantic beast with 3 tails appeared near the village of Kirigakure. After seeing the Sambi appear in the distance, Yuna clicked her tongue in annoyance. Sorry to disturb your lover's quarrel, but I promised that I will be defeating the Sanbi and I never break my promises, so I got to go now. Obito immediately scowled when he heard Yuna said that she will leave like it was no big deal. Do you really think we would just let you go like that? This is the perfect chance to get rid of you, so there is no way I will allow you to leave. Yuna sneered in disdain when she heard that. You truly are delusional, aren't you? You? Stopping me? What a jerk. But I am someone that loves a good jerk, so I will permit you to give it a try. Instead of instantly leaving with Monado's Flying Thunder God Seal, I will give you a total of 10 seconds to entangle me in combat. If you reach me, I won't be leaving. Aren't you nice? Obito instantly crouched down and prepared himself to attack Yuna, but just before he could jump forward, Yuna lifted her sword with 2 hands, and the moment the tip of her sword reached the highest point it felt like someone was holding a blade to Obito's and Zetsu's neck. While Obito's body was instantly doused in a cold sweat, Zetsu's was shaking in fear. I, of course, will try to prevent you from doing so. Rejoice, for this is the first time in this life that I am using this technique. Ice sword combination style, 1 slash begets 1,000 cuts. Yuna slashed down her sword, resulting in a massive cut made out of ice to fly at Obito and Zetsu, and moments later, it started split apart again and again, until it was no longer a single big slash but thousands of small ones, which created a massive wall of deadly attacks. Seeing the massive wall approaching him, Obito felt like death was creeping closer to him by the second, so without a moment of delay, he started forming hand signs and moments later he smashed his hands on the ground. Wood style, Wood Dragon Jutsu. A massive dragon made of wood appeared out of the ground and charged into Yuna's attack, but the moment it came in contact with it, the dragon was simply shredded to pieces while barely slowing down Yuna's attack. Just before Yuna's attack could make contact with Obito, Zetsu regained control over his emotions and used the same jutsu as Obito to slow it down some more, and just like with Obito's Wood Dragon, Zetsu's was torn to shreds like it was nothing. Obito gritted his teeth when he saw that, and then he realized that there was nothing more he could do, so he simply crouched down, while trying to protect his head by crossing his hands in front of it. Yuna, meanwhile, looked at the duo with some interest in her eyes. She did not expect that both of them would be this proficient in wood release. Although she doubted that those two actually noticed it, the spot in her attack where the 2 wood dragons hit was actually weakened quite a bit and Obito might actually survive it. Although Yuna found it a bit of a pity that he might survive, she has lost most of her interest in him. She would still kill him if she got another chance, but wouldn't bother with it too much. Although Yuna didn't know what exactly was going on, considering how incompetent he seemed to be when his Madara act slipped, there clearly is a bigger fish behind him. At first, she thought that Zetsu was the one that was manipulating Obito, but he didn't seem to be much of a thinker either, and seemed to get flustered incredibly easily, so Yuna discarded the thought of him being the mastermind as well. After shrugging her shoulders at her own thoughts, like she no longer cared about this matter, Yuna finished her mental countdown from 10 to 0 and teleported to the other battlefield. Although she felt quite a bit of pressure on her body and mind after using her technique, fighting the Sanbi should still be somewhat manageable. Obito, meanwhile, managed to somewhat survive Yuna's attack. There were gashes all over his body, while his arms were barely connected to his shoulders. Although Obito was close to fainting from blood loss and exhaustion, his Sharingan was practically radiating hatred, and if it wasn't already at the highest level, it would have evolved to it now. Chapter 184, Bantering with Mai. Mai Terumi looked at the gigantic form of the Sanbi and a frown appeared on her face. So far, the war has been going rather well, but now something happened that she would have rather prevented from happening. Yagura transformed into his Bizu form before Mai could get close to him. If Yagura was mid-transformation, she had the means to stop it, but now that Yagura was already fully transformed, there was nothing she could do about it except defeating him in battle. Additionally, Yuna, who claimed that she would fight the Sanbi, was nowhere to be seen. Although I didn't know to what degree Yuna could fight the fully transformed Sanbi, having a Jinchuriki on their side would definitely increase the morale of her troops and reduce the number of causalities. Before I got the chance to properly set up a defensive formation against the Sanbi's attacks, it unleashed a gigantic wave of water towards her side of the battlefield. This was actually why Bijou was so dangerous during a war. There was nothing that could match a Bijou in large-scale destruction capability, although my spoil style came rather close to it. Seeing the massive wave of water approaching her, a serious expression appeared on Mai's face as she started gathering chakra. Although she would have no problems repelling this attack, it would cost her quite a bit of chakra, which was rather annoying. Just before she could activate her own jetsu, a domineering voice echoed over the battlefield. "Freeze it." Mai could only look dumbfounded at what happened next. As if the water was obeying the command that was just issued, the massive wave of water stopped dead in its tracks and turned into a massive wall of ice. Moments later, Yuna appeared next to Mai with a satisfied smile on her face. After using this kind of technique against Danza, she lost her consciousness for quite a while, but causing a sentient being to disappear and freezing some water is on a fundamentally different level, especially for someone like Yuna who has an incredible affinity with ice. Although Mai was still slightly dumbfounded from the spectacle in front of her, when Yuna appeared next to her she immediately started glaring at Yuna. "Did you deliberately wait until the last moment to appear and save the day, Yuna?" Haha, although that is indeed something I would do to win a young maiden's heart, this time it was pure coincidence. "EA. Why a maiden?" Seeing Mai's flustered look, Yuna couldn't help but chuckle a little and wink at her, which caused a slight, pink blush to appear on her cheeks, but moments later she regained her composure and glared at Yuna. "Are you here to flirt or to fight?" "He, both." Mai's glare intensified even further while the air around her started to get hotter. Yuna quickly lifted her hand in a pacifying gesture. Fine, I'm done flirting, so I guess it's time to fight now." As soon as Yuna finished speaking, an incredibly condensed ball of chakra broke through the newly created ice wall and flew straight towards Yuna and Mai. "Bijou Dama." Mai immediately realized that she made a mistake. She was so engrossed in the conversation with Yuna that she didn't notice the enemy preparing another attack. Although she was annoyed at herself for making such a stupid mistake, that didn't mean she was helpless to block it, however. "No need to bother with that, Mai. Didn't I say I will be the one fighting the Sanbi?" As soon as Yuna finished speaking, 5 chains burst out of her back and drew a massive seal within a split second. Moments later, the Bijou Dama smashed into the seal, but instead of exploding, it vanished, followed by a huge explosion and an earth-shaking roar of pain. "Easy there, Yuna. He is still my brother. Sorry, but there was nowhere else to put it and it is not like he will actually die from it." Mai was naturally surprised by Yuna blocking yet another attack seemingly without any effort. "What happened just now?" Nothing much. I just teleported the attack back to its sender." Yet again, Mai couldn't help but be stunned by what Yuna just said. She, of course, heard about the Flying Thunder God seal before, but she has never heard that it could teleport attacks away. Especially not attacks on the level of a Bijou Dama. Moments later, an even more terrifying realization hit her. She realized that Yuna could simply teleport attacks inside other hidden villages, which would result in massive amounts of damage that no one could prevent from happening. Yuna noticed what kind of direction Mai's thoughts were going in, but decided not to bother with that for now. In Yuna's opinion, attacks that aim for total destruction from afar are beneath her. She always preferred to deal with things in a more personal manner. Mai, of course, didn't know Yuna well enough yet to know that, and right now wasn't the best time to talk about it either. There was, after all, a Bijou in front of her that was asking for a beating. A request that Yuna will happily fulfill. Red chakra started to bubble out of her body while she grew a total of 5 chakra tails. Unlike how Kurama's chakra cloak usually looked, the cloak wasn't completely red. Instead of that, there were patches of blue and white chakra interwoven all over the cloak, and instead of oozing hatred and killing intent, a mysterious and ancient aura was radiating out of it. Additionally, the ground Yuna was standing on immediately froze over without any input of her own, while small ice crystals started dancing all around her. This was the combined result of refining more and more of Kurama's chakra with the help of Yuna's own, and Kurama having watched a lot of her old memories about how she fought using ice and her understanding of it. At this point in time, Kurama could already be considered very knowledgeable about the Tao of Ice, despite having never cultivated it before. Beautiful. While barely even noticing what she said, Mai complimented Yuna's new look just to become flustered when she realized what she just said. And no, what I mean. Haha, I know I am beautiful, no need to say it out loud. On a different note, what do you think about my new chakra cloak? Looks pretty good as well, right? Mai's glare made a return when she heard Yuna's shameless answer, but before she could say anything, Yuna started speaking again. Well, you can compliment me some more after this is over. For now, I have a bijou to fight. See why later. Without giving Mai a chance to defend herself, Yuna jumped towards the enraged Sanbi with a smirk on her face, leaving a dumbfounded Mai behind. Mai heard the troops behind her snicker at her misfortune, but after glaring at them once, all of them straightened their backs and shut their mouth. Why doesn't this work on Yuna? So far, this has always worked. I guess Yuna is just abnormal, so there is nothing I can do about that for now. It's just a matter of time before I get my payback for Yuna messing with me like this. Chapter 185, Fighting Isobo. A few moments ago, Kirigaku's shinobi and Mai's rebel forces were still fiercely fighting each other. Now, however, all of them stood still and looked dumbfounded at what was unfolding in front of them. A young woman, coated in a multicolored chakra cloak, was fighting the massive form of the Sanbi all by herself. Instead of using the normal hit-and-run tactics that are usually used to fight against a bijou, she was clashing head-on with it. Every time the Sanbi swung its massive lens at the girl, her chakra cloak would expand and block the attack head-on. This, however, wasn't even what unnerved the spectating people the most. Ha ha ha, this is so much fun. The young girl's, Yuna's, roaring laughter while she was fighting the Sanbi was. Kirigaku had a lot of people that enjoyed fighting, but none of them would dare to laugh while fighting a mountain-sized enemy. Yuna, however. Fighting something this big is so exhilarating. She was enjoying herself a lot. In a previous life, there were a lot of gigantic beasts, but pretty much all of them chose to condense their forms into something smaller when they reached a certain level of strength. A huge body might be more efficient when the goal is to cause mass destruction, but when fighting someone at a similar level of strength, a huge form has a lot of disadvantages. That was why Yuna seldom fought enemies that were significantly bigger than herself in a previous life, and why she was enjoying herself so much right now. You still remember the plan, right? Huh? What PLAR? Right. The plan. I totally remember it, no need to worry about that, Kurama. Truth be told, when Yuna arrived in Kuri, she didn't have much of a plan except for beat up Isobo. Isobo, which is the Sanbi's real name, appeared to be similar to Shikako at first glance in that he appeared in front of an army of humans and wanted to slaughter them, but after giving him another glance, Yuna noticed that someone was controlling him. Considering she repelled an Uchiha not too long ago, she didn't need to be a genius to realize who the culprit was. After discussing the situation with Kurama for a moment and getting confirmation that Isobo is usually rather timid and wouldn't go out of his way to slaughter humans, Yuna decided to modify her plan a little. Well, she might have enjoyed herself a little too much, resulting in her plan slipping from her mind for a moment, but now that she got back her composure, she was ready to commence the plan. Another massive fist came crashing down on her, and just like the previous times, the chakra cloak around her own fist grew larger, and a moment later, two gigantic fists smashed into each other. Unlike the previous times, Yuna sent a powerful pulse of chakra into Isobu's body in an attempt to find out what was controlling Isobu. After the clash ended and their fists separated, Yuna found out that Isobu was bound by a very powerful genjutsu that had been applied to him and his host over a very long period of time. I see, Obito was talking about setting something up over a long period of time. Seems like the current Mizukage has been manipulated for multiple years by now. No wonder his ruling style was so irrational. He was actually forced to weaken Kuri to make whatever Obito and Plant are planning easier. Another powerful fist strike came crashing down on Yuna, but this time, instead of clashing with it head-on, she dodged it and landed on the attacking hand. Sorry, this will be a little uncomfortable. As soon as Yuna finished speaking, one of her ice chains shot out of her back, pierced through the hand, and nailed it to the ground, while starting to freeze it simultaneously. Since Isobu was a bijou and entirely made of chakra, piercing something through his hand couldn't even be considered a scratch, but despite that, another angry roar echoed over the battlefield, simply due to the discomfort he felt due to his hand getting sealed. This time, one of Isobu's tails was piercing towards Yuna, but just like with the previous attack, Yuna dodged away and nailed the tail to the ground with one of her chains. Well, 2 limbs and 3 tails, and I have 5 chains. How fortunate. Yes, you're really great. Let's get this over with. That's true, I guess. Let's finish this. No need to delay this any further. Isn't you losing yourself in battle the greatest cause for the delay this time? *** are ridiculous. I didn't forget the plan at all, I was just waiting for the perfect opportunity. Right. I was definitely waiting for the perfect opportunity. Right, Tilda. A short while later, Isobu's arms and tails were pinned to the ground by Yuna's chains, making it impossible for him to move at all. While the pinned-down Isobu was struggling to free himself from Yuna's chains, which was made even harder due to his limbs slowly freezing over, Yuna was leisurely walking towards Isobu's head. While she was walking, she made a nice clone without anybody noticing. While the real Yuna was slowly walking towards Isobu's head, the ice clone had already appeared there and was currently working on breaking the genjutsu that was controlling him. Although it took her a few moments to break it, simply due to how long it has been affecting Isobu, she still succeeded, and as soon as she did, she realized that Isobu wanted to start speaking immediately. With lightning speed, Yuna drew a silencing seal on Isobu's mouth, resulting in him opening and closing his mouth without any sounds coming out. Before Isobu could do anything else, Yuna gave control over her body to Kurama and let him speak to Isobu. Isobu, it's me, Kurama. Isobu, naturally, widened his eyes in surprise when he heard Kurama's voice. Although he immediately became skeptical whether it was really his brother talking or not, when Kurama said his real name, that skepticism vanished instantly. As far as Isobu knew, Kurama had never told anyone his name except those he considered family. We don't have much time, so let's talk inside our Minscape. Although Isobu wasn't sure what was going on, he trusted Kurama's words and simply nodded his head in agreement. The real Yuna, meanwhile, reached Isobu's head and prepared herself to show off. Her chains, which were still pinning down Isobu, lifted her up high in the air, while a sword entirely made of ice appeared in her hand. She lifted the sword over her head with both her hands, and moments later it started growing bigger. A few seconds later, the sword stopped growing and Yuna slashed it down with seemingly all her might while letting loose a loud roar that echoed over the battlefield. Ice sword combination style, heavenly executioner's frozen blade. The sword cut through Isobu's neck like it was made of paper and moments later cut into the ground, causing a massive frozen gash to form. As soon as Isobu's had landed on the ground, his whole body started disappearing, which was what usually happened when a bijou was killed. If Kuri shinobi were more knowledgeable about bijous, they would notice that instead of simply dispersing into the air, all of Isobu's chakras seemed to dissipate into the same direction. The only person who noticed that something was off was Abusa. Not because he knew a great deal about Bijou nor because he was especially sensitive to chakra, but simply because he knew what kind of person Yuna was. The moment he noticed that all of the chakra was dispersing in the same direction, he knew that something was wrong, but after watching Yuna's fight just now, he decided that he didn't see anything. He already made Yuna angry once on this trip and he felt like doing so a second time would not end well for him. Chapter 186, Convincing Isobo. Moments after Isobo agreed to talk to Kurama, he felt a familiar pull in the back of his mind, and moments later he found himself inside a vast forest that was covered in a small layer of snow. Isobo couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he suddenly appeared inside a forest. When Bijou wanted to talk to each other in their minds, they would usually appear inside a huge black room and not inside a forest, after all. Yo, Isobo. It's been a while. Hearing Kurama's voice behind him, Isobo decided to think about the matter with the forest later and turned around with a happy expression on his face. It has been a while, Kurama. When Isobo turned around to greet Kurama, he saw Kurama's current form, which turned his greeting into a question. Although he was controlled by someone else while he was fighting Yuna, he still remembered the whole fight, especially the color of the chakra that was coating his opponent. Right now, Kurama's color pattern looked rather similar to what Isobo saw on his opponent a few moments ago, which led him to a rather startling conclusion. No way, Kurama. You actual. Haha, nice to meet you, Isobo. Being under that genjutsu for such a long time sure must have been annoying, huh? Before Isobo could finish his sentence, he heard a carefree voice speaking to him. Although the voice sounded calm and non-threatening, it still sent shivers through his spine. He was hoping that Kurama somehow managed to take over the woman's body and just acted the way he did to keep up the illusion of not being controlled by Kurama. Isobo warily searched for the source of the voice, and when he saw the young woman he was looking for, casually sitting on top of Kurama's head, his jaw almost hit the ground. When Yuna saw that Isobo noticed her, a kind smile appeared on her face and she straightened her back. Greetings, Isobo. This one's name is Yuna Uzuma. Whoa, hey, stop shaking your head, Kurama. While Yuna was trying to give Isobo a dignified greeting, Kurama started shaking his head, almost causing Yuna to fall off. What are you acting all serious for? He has already seen the real you while you were fighting him, so what's the point of this, Yuna? Damn it, Kurama, isn't that obvious? I wanted to mess with him. As I thought, it really was that, huh? Seeing Kurama happily bantering with a human, Isobo was half certain that he was still trapped inside a genjutsu somehow. As far as he knew, the only human Kurama ever got along with was their father, and their father can't exactly be called a human either. Kurama, did you actually become friends with her? Kurama stiffened for a moment when he heard Isobo's question, but moments later he sighed in resignation and nodded his head. I did, although I have been regretting it ever since. Ha ha ha, don't be like that, grumpy fox. We both know that you enjoy spending TWOAH. Stop shaking your head, damn it. Isn't this your own fault for sitting on my head in the first place? Seeing how the giant fox and the young woman started quarreling yet again, Isobo couldn't help himself but chuckle a little. Out of all his siblings, Kurama was the last one he expected to get along with a human. Instead of simply working together because they had no other choice, they seemed to be genuine friends as well. Sorry to disturb you little lovers' quarrel, but... Who are you calling lovers? Yet again Isobo chuckled when he managed to get a rise out of Kurama. Between the 9 siblings, Kurama has always been the one who acted like everybody's big brother, so Isobo had a lot of fun making him lose his composure. Anyway, could you two tell me why you brought me here? When they heard Isobo's question, Yuna and Kurama were both a little startled, like they completely forgot about this matter, but within a split second, they regained their composure and started talking like nothing happened. Right, we wanted to ask you whether you are interested in following us to Konoha. That's right. As you might or might not have already noticed, someone is having big plans for you Bijou and wants to capture you all. Kurama has told me what one might get from gathering all of you together, so how about coming under my protection until this matter is over? A frown appeared on Isobu's face when he heard what Yuna said. Although he didn't know that his fellow siblings are being hunted, he naturally knew what one would get from gathering all of them together. The resurrection of the Jubi, the ten-tailed. That certainly wasn't something good, but there was still another problem with what Yuna just said. How can I trust you? It wouldn't be weird for you to be one of the people who want to gather my siblings as well. Well, that's true, and I assume that me getting Kurama's trust isn't enough to convince you, huh? Although Isobu hesitated a little when he heard that, he still nodded his head, which caused Kurama to frown a little. Although he could understand where Isobu's mistrust was coming from considering how long he has been controlled by someone, Kurama was still not happy about it. Haha, I see. Well, there is actually a very simple reason why I will not go out of my way to gather all the Bijou to get their power. Oh? And what is it? If you really have a good reason, then I am willing to follow you back, as long as you have a nice place for me to stay. Actually, I wouldn't even mind being temporarily sealed into someone if their moonscape is as nice as this one and I am not bound by anything. Yuna couldn't help but appreciate Isobu's offer. Someone as massive as Isobu is very hard to hide, so temporarily sealing him makes everything much easier for Yuna. She actually had a pretty good idea of what she would do with Isobu but wasn't sure if everyone involved was fine with the idea. Well, thanks for the nice offer, and as to why I don't plan on capturing all the Bijou. Suddenly, the pressure of Yuna's presence became massive, resulting in Isobu staggering backward and almost falling over. Kurama, on the other hand, seemed to be completely unbothered by it and only looked at the faltering Isobu with some amusement in his eyes. Yuna and Kurama spent a lot of time refining the chakra together, and while doing so, Kurama would constantly feel pressured by Yuna's presence, so by now, Kurama was no longer bothered by it. I don't plan to capture them, because I don't need them to become the strongest. As fast as the pressure came, it left, and as soon as it did, Isobu fell on the ground while taking deep breaths. He had never felt such a powerful presence before and couldn't help but look at Yuna in astonishment. Now, at least, he knew why Kurama befriended a normal human. It was because that normal human wasn't normal at all. Well, did my argument convince you? Isobu chuckled with a wry smile on his face before nodding his head. It did. I am willing to follow you and trust you that you won't do anything to harm me. Haha, very good. Guess it is time to return to the outside world and give this play a satisfactory ending. Chapter 187, The Innocent Isobu. The moment the real Yuna cut off Isobu's head, she and her ice clone switched positions, and seconds later, the seal that Yuna put on Isobu's body while his limbs were restrained by her chains was activated. Instead of Isobu's chakra dissipating after getting killed, all of it started to slowly flow towards Yuna's main body. Unlike how it was with Kurama, Yuna didn't mix any of her chakra with Isobu's, which meant that he could leave Yuna's body without any consequences for her or Isobu. After a short moment, Isobu's body had completely vanished and the only thing left behind was the unmoving body of the current Mizukichi. Yuna wasn't completely certain whether she was responsible for his death or not, but didn't care too much about it either way. The moment Isobu's had landed on the ground and Igura's corpse was revealed, the rebel army went into an uproar. Incredible! She actually killed the fourth Mizukichi. Who even is that? I have never seen her in Kirigakure. That hair color, isn't she the head of the Uzumaki clan? The Uzumaki clan? Aren't they from Konoha? Why is she here? While the rebels were excited about Yagura's defeat, Kirigakure's forces had pretty much the opposite reaction. Impossible. Mizukichi-sama was killed. What are we supposed to do now? Who is she? Is she really part of the rebels? Hearing the uproar happening on both sides of the battlefield, a smirk appeared on Yuna's face as her gaze slowly wandered over Kiridaki's forces. Every time she met somebody's gaze, the person would immediately look away in fear of provoking her. Yuna pondered for a moment about what was the best choice to make and quickly came to a conclusion. She started speaking with an indifferent voice that seemed to echo over the whole battlefield despite not being particularly loud. "Oh? Seems like I got in the way of some kind of conflict. Well, I am done fighting the Sanbi and I am rather satisfied with the battle, so you can continue to do whatever you were doing." Hearing Yuna's indifferent comment about her indirectly killing the Mizuguchi, one of the strongest people in Kiridaki's army stepped forward with anger burning in his eyes. "Is that why you killed our Mizuguchi? You killed him only because you wanted to fight the Sanbi? Aren't you from Konoha? Do you think you can do whatever you want just because the last war ended in Konoha's favor?" A sneer of disdain appeared on Yuna's face as she looked at the shinobi who just said that. The moment Yuna's eyes landed on him, he instinctively took a step back and averted his gaze. Just by Yuna looking at him, he felt a lot of pressure. "I killed your Mizuguchi. Aren't you a little too delusional? Didn't you see how the Sanbi acted during my fight with it? It was acting just like a mindless beast. I don't know what exactly was done to your Mizuguchi, but I can guarantee you that he was already dead when he transformed, otherwise he wouldn't have fought like that. I thought you weren't sure whether you were responsible for his death or not. Don't worry about that, Isober." The moments where Yuna's thoughts and words match are rather rare. "I isn't that a bad thing?" "Well, you get used to it." That doesn't really answer my question, but I guess I shouldn't bother with that for now. Ding. Individual, Kurama, has started the process of corrupting individual, Isober. Current progress, 5%. Hey. That's my thing. What was that? Ding. Individual. Corruption. What is going on, Kurama? Haha, that was just a little payback. Don't worry about it, Isober. It's just a little game Yuna and I like to play. Hee, that's right, just a little innocent game. Oh okay. Although Isober noticed the rather competitive and maybe slightly insane undertone in Kurama's voice, he decided not to bother with that for now. He did, however, decide for himself that he would get out of Yuna's body as fast as he possibly could. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Yuna's comment about the Mizuguchi caused a huge uproar in the ranks of both armies. During the fight itself, no one noticed anything weird, but now that it was over and everyone could think about it properly, they found out that it was indeed weird that the Sanbi was acting like a wild beast. Killer Bay, the Jinchuriki of Kumodakure, was well known for being able to fully transform into the Hachibai during combat, and he doesn't act like a mindless beast while doing so. Although the shinobi of Kiridakure were missing a lot of information in regards to using Abishi's power, they still came up with their own conclusion without thinking too deeply about it. Rather than admitting that their cage was inferior to someone from Kuma, they would rather swallow an explanation that pushed the blame on another factor. Especially when Yuna gave them such a convenient way out by saying, "I don't know what exactly was done to your Mizuguchi," which implied that someone else was manipulating the situation. No way. Was someone really manipulating Mizuguchi-sama? I found it weird that Mizuguchi-sama transformed at the start of the battle while he was still standing together with us. Wasn't that really dangerous? That's right. Although his first two jutsu didn't hit us, it would have been really dangerous if he were to continue fighting that close to our troops. Kurama, what is happening? MHH. What are you talking about, Isobo? I mean this whole situation. I don't know much about human wars, but Yuna clearly interfered in one of them without being allowed to do so, so why is everyone suddenly talking about Yugura instead? Oh, this. Well, it is called diverting attention, and it is one of Yuna's favorite tricks. She doesn't want people to talk about her messing around in this war, so she puts their attention on something else and quickly leaves the location while everyone is too immersed in the new problem to notice her. I see, that makes sense. I guess it was rather lucky that Yugura was controlled, otherwise it would have been hard for Yuna to get out of this situation. Haha, what do you say, Naisobo? If he wasn't controlled, Yuna would have just found a way to compensate them for the trouble. Luckily for Kurama, Isobu was rather pure, so he didn't question Kurama's slip of the tongue and didn't ask what he was about to say either. Yuna, meanwhile, chuckled a little at the duo's conversation and did exactly what Kurama said she would do. While everyone was fervently discussing whether the Mizukage was controlled or not, she stealthily vanished from the battlefield. Chapter 188, Another Intense Battle. My Terumi was tired. No, she wasn't simply tired, she was dead tired. After Yuna killed Yugura and left the battlefield, the conflict was pretty much over. Shortly after Yuna left, quite a few people in the enemy's army had their fighting spirit reignited, but after Mai melted a few dozen of them, that changed rather quickly. Although the conflict was over after that, her work was far from done. She still had to meet dozens of supposedly important people and talk with them about the current political situation of Kiridikya and the land of water in general. This even included the daimyo who, after remembering Yuna's words, Mai considered melting a few times during their discussion about who the next Mizukage should be, despite Mai being pretty much the only real choice. 2 hours. That was how long that discussion took, despite there being nothing to discuss at all. That she even fought him. Hatred started oozing out of Mai as she gritted her teeth and asked the most important question for her. How long? For how long has Yugura been controlled? Just during the fight or? Although Mai didn't finish her sentence, it was rather obvious what she meant. If Yugura was just controlled during the fight, Mai couldn't care less, but if he had been controlled for a long period of time, that meant that Kiridikya's leader has been a puppet for a long time and that someone was deliberately messing up how Kiridikya functions. Seeing the anger in Mai's face, Yuna could only shake her head with a wry smile on her face. Sorry about that, but the culprit said that he was preparing for this event for a long time and that he wanted to remove Kiridikya from the list of the 5 great villages. Although I'm not sure how long he was acting as the puppet master, it certainly was for quite some time. Mai gritted her teeth even harder when she heard that. All that suffering she and her fellow shinobi went through was actually because someone was pulling the strings from behind the scenes. She thought that Kiridikya could finally have some peace now that Yugura was dead, but it seems like that wasn't the case yet. Mai took a deep breath to calm down her anger and looked at Yuna with a serious expression. Who is it? Who is that piece of shit that has caused my people to suffer for such a long time? Obito Uchiha. Although he likes to pretend to be Madara and wears a mask to hide his face, I found out his real identity. Uchiha. As in Konoha's Uchiha clan. I thought they got wiped out. Yuna could only shrug her shoulders when she heard Mai's questions. That's right, but the Uchiha are like cockroaches and are very hard to completely kill off. That Obito guy supposedly died during the last war, but here he is, messing around in other people's business. Mai pondered for a moment and a few moments later, she asked her next question. Why did he do it? There is no way he wanted to weaken Kiridikya without a reason. Do you know his final goal? Yet again Yuna shrugged her shoulders before shaking her head. No clue, but considering that he thought of himself as a big shot, it's probably something boring like world domination or something like that. Well, now that I think about it some more, he is an Uchiha and they always think of themselves as big shots, so my guess might be completely wrong. Although Mai's eyebrow twitched a little when Yuna called world domination a boring goal, she decided to not bother with that for now. She already noticed that Yuna had a rather strange view of the world and that there was no point in trying to understand her point of view sometimes. It seems like he is someone who I will have to fight in the future. Do you have any useful intel on him that could make fighting him easier? Instead of saying anything, Yuna pulled out a scroll and tossed it towards Mai, who easily caught it mid-flight. That is everything I managed to find out about him so far. After pondering for a moment, Yuna shrugged her shoulders and tossed another scroll towards Mai. And this is a seal that locks space. Although it has to be installed in a fixed location, this will at least prevent him from easily infiltrating important places inside Korea. Mai was shocked when she heard what the scroll in her hands could do, and moments later, a wide smile appeared on her face and she looked to Yuna in gratitude. Thank you, Yuna. I will definitely return the favor. Upon hearing that Mai will return the favor, a perverted grin appeared on Yuna's face, which caused Mai to look at her in bewilderment. Gahidi, then you better prepare yourself for when I cash in that favor. Instead of answering, Mai could only stare at Yuna with her mouth wide open from the shock of Yuna suddenly acting like a perverted old man. Yuna, on the other hand, couldn't help but laugh out loud when she saw Mai's dumbfounded face. Ha ha ha, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. Hearing Yuna's loud laughter, Mai immediately glared at her, despite knowing that her glare didn't work on Yuna. Hee, anyway, I got to go. I bet Tsunade is already making plans to capture me and throw me into prison for when I return, so I need to get back before she can set those plans into motion. Oh, and don't worry, I will occasionally teleport over so we can have another 5-minute fight. Before Mai could say anything, Yuna gave her another kiss and teleported away with a smirk on her face. Mai pouted when Yuna disappeared without giving her a chance to say anything, but moments later a small smile appeared on her face. Hee, next time she comes over, I will definitely win. Despite being very tired, Mai closed her eyes and started slowly moving the little chakra she still had remaining. I might lose in quantity, but I will not lose in quality. It has been a long time since I trained my chakra control, but considering how far above me Yuna was in that aspect, it seems my chakra control is far from what I thought would be considered perfect. I can't win against the massive amount she has, but I will definitely surpass her in control. Definitely. For the first time in a long while, Mai's competitive spirit was ignited. Due to her incredibly powerful bloodline, she barely had to train to get to where she was right now, but after meeting Yuna, that changed. Maybe for the first time in her life, Mai desired to improve with every fiber of her being. I will definitely win the next time.